Hey guys, I'm Jared Leon, and I'm going to give you a quick walkthrough of my data science 4100 final project. So the goal of the project, decided to focus on the sports realm, specifically American football, where I look at quarterback rating of the last 20 years and take in various factors to try and be able to accurately predict quarterback rating unconventionally. What do I mean by unconventionally? The current way to predict quarterback rating, as you can see, is pretty ridiculous, where they take in 5 different factors: attempts, completions, yards, touchdowns, interceptions, do a bunch of crazy math, and out you have your quarterback rating. So let's see if we can use some different factors and no math and see how accurate we can come to predicting a quarterback's rating. So to start out with the import of the data and the shaping of it, I went on a Kaggle and found a zip file with 14 files of quarterback ratings, and I extracted the one that combined all the different years from 1996 to 2016's quarterback ratings. I used RSQLite for a database, and the data, it was in good shape with just some minor issues. For instance, some rows had completions greater than attempts, which is impossible. If you're a quarterback and you complete 45 passes to 40 attempts, that's not possible. You need completions to be less than attempts. So I removed that data. And then another issue was that the location column was in string form, specifying if the game was home or away. So I just converted that to binary values where 1 equaled home and 0 equaled away to see if we could use that as a factor, as you can see from that line of code. So I also calculated some new metrics as well. Sack average, where you take the total yards lost for a sack and divide that by the number of times they were sacked. Completion rate, touchdowns, interceptions, net yards, where you take the total yards and subtract off the sack yards. And I created a table in the database with this clean data and all these new metrics to be able to be used for a model. And I'll run that block of code for you right here. So as you can see, this is the data set that I will be working with. So initially looking at the data, you can see that it's pretty normally distributed. That first histogram was before I decided to tweak the data in the database a little bit, where I wouldn't be cleaning it at all. Instead, I would just, I filtered on quarterbacks that had a minimum of temps of 15, because a quarterback who has less than that doesn't really give you a full picture, and they probably didn't even play a full game. So you want a good sample size of at least 15 attempts. You know, an average quarterback will throw the ball 25 to 30 games. So that we set as the floor, as well as I went with modern day players, so after the year 2000. So both those metrics reflect the frequency. The histogram below, and as you can see, it's really well normally distributed. The mean was 83 with a standard deviation of about 28. So this led to no outliers. There were before cleaning of the data where, you know, the mean was right around 85 and the standard deviation was 27. So that just fell over 3 standard deviations to the 0 side, because it didn't go on the high side where the max rating is 158. So 3 standard deviations from the average would actually be in the 160s, which is impossible to occur. So that's how the data looked, and it looked pretty promising, as you can see, being that normally distributed. So, constructing a model. I used R's LM function to perform a multiple regression analysis instead of using Excel. 12 factors used, as you can see, and there were a few good p-values right off the bat. Unfortunately, there were some bad ones. Sack average. Unfortunately, you know, the quarterback getting sacked a lot doesn't have an impact on their rating as much as I wanted it to. And as well as if they played at home or away. And I was hoping that it would. You'd think that if a quarterback played away, their rating wouldn't be as good as if they played at home. But fortunately, we had to get rid of that as well as the sacks and sack average. So that initial tweak, things looked a little bit better, but then we had yards, yards lost, and net yards that were just over the .05 p-value barrier for us to use. And so after we did a final tweak, we're down to just 6 metrics where we use completion rate, yards per attempt, touchdowns, interceptions, and game points. And we had an awesome R squared value, almost at 1, sitting at .97, as you can see. So, I mean, as you can see, these factors are all used in the actual quarterback rating calculator, but it doesn't do any of that math. And look how close we are. So let's look at the predictor. Here's a block of code that I took in all those estimates and did a little prediction to see how close we could come to predicting an accurate quarterback rating. So I'm going to run this block of code for you guys, and let's see what we got. So as you can see, we're just 3 points off from having a perfect model. And that's really good when you're looking at quarterback ratings. You know, the difference between a 97 quarterback rating and 100 is really not noticeable. You usually judge them by tens. You know, 90 to 100 are all pretty similar viewed. You know, if you have a 70 to an 80 rating, it's considered a poor rating anyway around. So after that, I decided to do a simple new model, you know, take in just 2 metrics that the current quarterback rating does not use and see how close we could get to that. So as you can see, I just used touchdowns, interceptions, and the game points that they scored. They looked like great p-values, but unfortunately the R squared was really low at 0.44 compared to that awesome 0.97 that we used in the model before. So that kind of proved me wrong, where, you know, I was hoping that if they had a lot of points scored in their game and a bunch of touchdowns, that lead to a good rating, and vice versa. So I decided to then do a happy medium model where we just look at touchdowns, game points, and completion rate. This was the best combo of metrics that I could find where it didn't use all the factors that are currently being used, and it still had great p-values and a much higher R squared value than that previous model that we ran. So I'm going to run that block of code for you guys as well, and we can see how that looked. So just 11 points off, and unfortunately I would have liked that to be below 10, as I said before. If it was at 7 or 8, that would have been pretty good predictor for just using 3 factors and none that are even used in the quarterback rating computation itself. You know, it makes sense because off, you know, the top of my head, if a quarterback threw, you know, high number of touchdowns as well as high completion rate, along with scoring a lot of points, you'd think their rating would be high, right? And same with vice versa. So that's me wrapping this up. And basically, you know, I think I've proved to you guys that you don't need all the crazy math and metrics to compute a quarterback's rating. I bet this could get even better if weather data was gathered, along with teammate injuries and teams' current record at the time. You know, it could be useful for gambling or playing fantasy football. So this concludes my data science final project for the fall of 2017 at Northeastern. And thank you.